Everybody, I think we got Mr. Bassett online. Are you there, Mr. Bassett?
Yes, I am.
Excellent. We've had everybody here. We're talking about, open contact finally coming, and Mr. Kiernan was speaking at the museum exhibit of the opening with Stanton Friedman. I think all these coming together with the key event that you have, the citizens' hearing, is going to finally end this truth embargo. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, look, a lot is happening this year. There's a lot going on. It's so much that you just get pieces and some information here and there from different people. But the truth embargo is near its end. It's been, hanging on by a thread, frankly, for a number of years. The truth embargo, of course, is the policy of the U.S. government and its allies to not acknowledge this extraterrestrial presence, to pretend it's not here, to deny it, say as little as possible, even nothing. When cornered, again, come up with flat statements of denial. This policy has now been in place for 65 years. So we think it's time for this policy to end, and it's time for the people to know the truth. A rather important piece of information, namely they're not alone in the universe. Okay, good. What will end it? What will change this policy? Governments usually don't give up their policies, particularly when they've held them for a long time, easily. They hang on as a matter of pride, as a matter of public relations, you name it. And they've been really very resistant. But it's catching up with them. Public awareness is nearly 100% worldwide. 50% of the American people, in fact, all of the developed nations, believe that this phenomenon is extraterrestrial. 85% believe their governments are not lying they're lying to them. Probably based on some polling, recent polling, 50% of all of the people in the world believe this phenomena is extraterrestrial. So how long can you maintain this illusion, this rather strange misrepresentation? So is this the year? Very likely. I think the prospects look good. I'm getting comments that insiders inside government are making moves themselves, that there's kind of a timeline underway, a little bit slow perhaps, but nevertheless underway. And we have, of course, our contribution to the process, the disclosure process, and that's the citizen hearing, which is scheduled for April 29 to May 3.
This citizens hearing is going to be broadcast on the web for the whole world to see. Can you tell everybody where they can see it?
Yeah, the website is citizenhearing.org, and at citizenhearing.org you can easily find the webcast link. We're going to webcast it in English and Spanish, which covers, about 1.7 billion people. Our plan is to then archive it in Mandarin Chinese, Arabic, Japanese, and Hindi, so that in archive, people will be able to go and watch the entire hearing, all 30 hours of testimony and questions and answers, for $3.80. I mean, it's $3.80 to watch it live for a whole week and $3.80 to go to the archive. So we're trying to make it as accessible as possible to everybody. And this is part of the power of this event. The citizen hearing is more than just a press conference, much, much more. It's not 2 hours in front of some media. It's 30 hours over 5 days with media coverage before, during, and after. And it's being webcast. Whether or not television gets in there, C-SPAN, whatever, we will be webcasting it. More importantly, it's the number of witnesses is 41 witnesses will be presenting testimony. And then, of course, there's the fact that the hearing committee is made up not of just anybody, but former members of the United States Congress and Senate, House of Representatives and the Senate. Between these 6 committee members is 80 years of tenure in the House of Representatives, the U.S. Congress, and the Senate. This has never been done before. It's unprecedented. Furthermore, we're filming the entire thing, so we'll have an extensive record, and we're going to make a documentary about it called Truth Embargo.
Stephen, with this truth embargo and all the testimony from this kind of caliber of eyewitness, it seems quite historic. It would hold up in any criminal law, obviously. What about the higher government? Do you think, people in charge are going to be keeping a close eye on this and feel threatened that the truth may be untold and maybe feel like, we might be ready for disclosure?
Well, we're pretty confident that a significant percentage of people inside government right now are probably in favor of ending the truth embargo. We've got plenty of allies inside, and that only grows. I'm sure the government is paying attention. I know the government's paying attention to this. I mean, we're holding it 2 blocks from the White House and 14 blocks from the U.S. Capitol. There's already been some substantial coverage. There's going to be a lot more. So, yeah, they're fully aware of it. Do they feel threatened by it? I think ultimately they know the truth embargo is going to end. So I suppose to the extent that it might advance the pace of that, I suppose that maybe they would prefer to have a little more time. But the idea that the truth embargo is going to be around a long time and this is going to suddenly change that, no. So we think probably it's going to build more allies in government and help the process rather than create too much resistance. That's my sense right now. So again, we're getting very feedback even from insiders. We're getting some feedback indirect from insiders that are basically sort of endorsing the idea.
As far as reports being made by FAA, pilots, they really can't report to the FAA anymore. They made a new law, I think, back in 2010 that they were not to take any more reports or not to receive any in the FAA, but they were redirected the pilots to Bigelow Aerospace, and they would take the report. Why do you think the government wanted to bow out of, taking these reports from the pilots? And what do you think was behind that whole situation where they just diverted?
That was actually a very short episode. The complex policy here is that the government understood that pilots are fairly trained people, particularly airline pilots, obviously military pilots, and so when they see these things, and they do, and they talk about it, that's a problem for the truth embargo. So as one of the many, many things they had to do to maintain this truth embargo as long as they have is they had to quiet the pilots. And so essentially the military told them, you don't talk about this. And that's pretty strong. I mean, if you're serving in the military, there's a whole lot of reasons why you can't violate your orders. As far as the civilian pilots, well, naturally they want their job. So they were told they shouldn't talk about it. So they shut the pilots up. Of course, then what happened is that people started going to researchers, the most prominent one being a NASA scientist by the name of Richard Haynes, who started collecting these pilot reports in a database, which I know is at least 3,500 now, many anonymous for obvious reasons. And that is that database of pilot reports is one of the most important pieces of evidence in the world. Because we're talking about pilots seeing 30-foot, 40-foot discs off their wingtips. Kind of unambiguous, I wouldn't call that a UFO. I would call that a 40-foot disc. It's definitely not a flock of geese or a frisbee. So, again, these kinds of things, they wanted to suppress that. And there was an episode a while back when, as part of Robert Bigelow's engagement of this issue, and he is, to his credit, put a lot of money behind research in this field, though he's kind of withdrawn right at the moment. They tried to sort of set up a thing where the sightings would be reported to Bigelow's organization. Well, that fell apart very quickly for a number of reasons. I think the intentions might have been good, but nevertheless not acceptable that a private organization would have some sort of exclusive arrangement. Why would they do that? Well, in general, they shut Blue Book down in 1969 because, look, if you don't have to answer questions, then you don't have to talk about something. Right? The last thing they want to do is ask questions, have to respond to anybody about this. They want us all to just go away, pretend it's not there. They want the newspapers not to cover it, the Congress not to investigate it. They just want us to not deal with it. And unfortunately, they've done this in other areas. In other words, we're your elected officials. We're hired by
correspondent Dr. J. Andy Elias, along with Stephen Bassett, who's holding a major event right there in Washington, D.C. And I want to thank everybody for being back right here at Third Phase of Moon. And I want to ask Stephen about this coming up event. Would it be possible to get us some feeds right here to Third Phase of Moon so we could keep, people on our end, the 70,000 subscribers from around the world, updated?
Mr. Bassett?
Uh-oh, we lost Bassett.
I had to get Mike back. Look, well, it's going to be live streamed, so, I mean, you could very well sign up for the live stream and play some of that during your show, feel free. Beyond that, I'm not sure what we can do. We're going to be pretty much intensely involved in the production of it, but we will be live streaming it. Anybody can sign up and access it on their computer, even a radio show, and then comment on the situation.
We'll be keeping a close eye on the stream. As far as the shocking testimony that's going to be coming out over there, out of all the eyewitnesses and the high caliber, brains over there, high. People that have been in high places. What do you think is going to be the greatest, most...
The evidence that they're going to be presenting has been known. Most of it's been known for some time. The problem is not do we have the evidence, or is the evidence powerful enough? It's been more than adequate for decades. It's that there's a truth embargo, which says that whatever you have, we don't want to hear it. If you're a pilot and you see a disc, we don't want to know about it. If you had a major sighting, we don't know about that either. If you saw something, or if you worked on a program, don't talk about it, etc. I mean, it's just the game just goes on and on. But what is different about this citizen hearing is that we just don't have a few witnesses. We have researchers and witnesses. In other words, we've got researchers there that represents, probably a couple hundred years of direct research into this phenomena, and then we've got military agency political witnesses that have had direct engagement of contacts, with events and evidence, also presenting together. Most of these press conferences that have been held in the last few years have generally been just military agency witnesses saying, well, I saw this, I did this. We're adding the researchers into the mix so they can provide much more in-depth background to the larger picture. So this is just going to give it more heft. That's why it takes 5 days. Right? Because we've got 40 witnesses. Many of them are going to testify more than once. We're probably going to have, in that sense, 60 to 70 witnesses that are going to be in panel, right, before these former members of Congress. Two of the most important panels will be the Roswell panel and the nuclear tampering panel. We have, with respect to the nuclear tampering issue, we have Robert Salas, Malmstrom Air Force Base case, Minot case, and then, of course, we have others related to that issue. David Scott, David Schindley, Bruce Venstermacher. Richard Dolan will be talking about other cases. That's going to go on for 3 hours. That's a long session, and one of the most important stories out there. They gave a press conference on this several years ago that should have been major news, but of course, the truth embargo, the press goes, we're not really allowed to go further with that. But thank you so much. Well, we're going to put it under their nose again. The Roswell panel is going to have, Don Schmidt, Stanton Friedman, Kevin Randall, Jesse Marcel Jr., Jesse's children, Jesse Marcel III and Denise Marcel, are going to testify next to him. Edgar Mitchell will comment by Skype. That's going to be a double session for 3 hours. This gives you a sense of the testimony.
Mr. Bassett, I see the witness list. It is enormous. You have the Roswell panel, then you have the panel from the people that were involved in the 1980 Rendlesham Forest, and I think this is finally going to blow things out of the water. These are top people, top witnesses. Like you said, Jesse Marcel Jr., he actually handled some of the debris, one of the last remaining people to do so.
And he'll testify that his father was telling the truth, and his kids will testify their grandfather was telling the truth. And they'll all maybe talk a little bit about the effect it's had on their family to be, involved in something like that, and then the government denies everything you say. And you're good Americans, and obviously Jesse Marcel Sr. was an officer with a security clearance. Jesse Marcel Jr. has served in Iraq and retired from the Air National Guard, I believe, as a colonel, and these are good people who have had good lives, and yet the government says they're liars. This has an impact on the family. We're talking a little bit about that. We've got people. We have tried to get some representation. I think we have 10 countries represented overall. Probably the leading UFO researcher in I say UFO, extraterrestrial phenomena researcher is what it is. In Italy, Roberto Panatti will be there. Here's a rare instance. The leading ET researcher in the People's Republic of China, Dr. Sun Shili, will be there testifying. We have Colonel Richard French, who will be talking about Roswell. He's a recent witness. And of course, we have researchers like Stanton Friedman and Grant Cameron, Richard Dolan. We have two individuals from the Bentwaters case, and we also have Nick Pope talking about the Bentwaters-Rendlesham case. Again, this is a lot of material. And then we have a huge South American panel that's going to go on for 3 hours because of so much going in South America. So we have A.J. Guevara representing Brazil, Dr. Anthony Choi representing Peru. We have Ariel Sanchez representing Uruguay, and Alejandro Chianetti representing Argentina, talking about what's going on there. Antonio Neas, Chile, and then Oscar Santa Maria. We're hoping to get someone from Mexico. We're still working on that. There's 700 million people down there, and they're having all kinds of engagement with the issue, not to mention a lot of military coming forward. And again, this is all about something that the White House, just 18 months ago, in a written statement issued through the Office of Science and Technology Policy, which you can go on the White House website and find right now, that there's no evidence at all. None of this is true. There's no evidence. None of this is evidence at all of an extraterrestrial presence. And there's no evidence that the government has ever hidden anything. I mean, this is a remarkable statement. It's more of a bald-faced lie than anything Bill Clinton ever said about Monica Lewinsky. It's an extraordinary, complete, indefensible untruth that is now their policy in writing, for better or for worse. And when they put it in writing as a response to the Paradigm Research Group's disclosure petition of September 22nd, 2011, it was the first time the White House ever put anything in writing, which is notable. Because you don't want to ever do that. Remember, you don't want to answer questions. You don't want to be asked questions. You don't want to put anything in writing. You want this to just go away. And so when they gave that response, something in me said, they can't possibly respond favorably to that petition by saying, well, we'll consider it. It's an issue worth whatever. They could not do that. So what they did was issue a completely indefensible false response, knowing that we would tear it to pieces. It was almost like the White House was saying, this is the best we can do. Here's something you can rip to pieces. Rip it to pieces, and maybe the media will go, wow, that's some pretty big news. The White House has lied about the most important issue in the world today. Maybe we ought to put a reporter on that. Maybe ask a few tough questions. So I'll wonder, unless I finally learn for sure, if that was not an intentional assistance provided to the disclosure movement by the White House by putting out such a completely indefensible blanket statement like that, whereas they could have written some wishy-washy thing that they could have easily backed out of or rationalized. They didn't do that. Absolute brute statement. No evidence exists. None of the material, none of the millions of sightings, none of the 5,000 books, none of the witnesses coming forward, none of the documents that have been gotten from government, none of the tens of thousands of documents released by over a dozen countries in the last 10 years. None of that is evidence for an extraterrestrial presence. What an unbelievable statement. It makes the government statement about, not too long ago about nuclear weapons in Iraq pale in its boldness. Right?
Mr. Bassett, you actually beat me to the question I was going to ask you, but before I do that, I got to make a statement. All these witnesses are true top witnesses. You got Dr. Edgar Mitchell, the sixth man on the moon, and for the public, because of the media spin and the ridicule people receive on this UFO topic, are taking down this man who is a national hero. But let me go back to the petition that you said 2011. At the time, it was 5,000 signatures. You got 12,000, right?
Right, which got our response, which is why we were able to get a response, because that was the rule at the time.
Yeah, and then they changed it to 25,000. This last petition, they changed it to 100,000 after we started getting the word out. And when you after that happened, and I heard a lecture from you at the Conscious Life Expo in 2012, and you said something amazing. You brought up during the Kennedy administration how so many people in the media knew the secrets that were going on, but because Kennedy did not lie to the public and to the media, they let it go. But yet, when Clinton came on board and he lied straight to the public and to all the media, and they knew he was lying, they attacked him. And just like you said in your lecture last year, I truly hope that the media will finally pick up on this of being lied to.
Well, it's certainly an issue. I mean, of course, the world has changed since Kennedy. Yeah, and obviously Kennedy didn't lie about his affairs. He was not asked. It was like an understanding, worked pretty well. That changed, and it became a lot more difficult for any president to act like Jack Kennedy. And fortunately for Bill Clinton, he really wanted to act like Jack Kennedy. He was his hero. But when he stepped out on the podium that time and said he had not had sex with that woman, he really crossed the line and helped to ensure that the media frenzy would essentially bring it all out. Of course, Nixon lied straight-faced to the press, too, and they knew he was lying, and they brought him down. This is the truth embargo has been maintained by just avoiding as much as possible ever having to lie straight-faced to the press, dodging, weaving, not responding. And, of course, building it up over so many decades that the press just sort of got fully enculturated into this and hypnotized, you might say. So they got away with it, but it's getting harder and harder. And for whatever reason, either by intention or because they didn't see it coming when they created that petition program, We the People, at the White House website, they got put in a position where they either had to say we don't want to respond to that petition, which would have been very, very telling, or they had to give some sort of a semi-positive response, which would have been pretty interesting for them, or a complete denial. And they chose the complete denial. So the strategy, of course, was to get that all along. Now, in the last 18 months, we've certainly attacked that position in various ways with 5 more petitions that went to the White House website and stayed up there for 30 days, not longer, because we could never get to 25 and eventually 100,000 signatures. But the citizen hearing is designed specifically to provide it's the other shoe dropping here. The first shoe was the disclosure petition and the White House response. 18 months later, we dropped the second shoe, wherein for 5 days we're going to dump 30 hours of the evidence the White House claims doesn't exist, and we're hoping a couple of editors and publishers will go, okay, that's it, that's enough, and they're going to go Watergate, Iran-gate, Benghazi-gate, Travel-gate, Pork-belly-gate, Trooper-gate, pick a gate. They're going to go gate on this issue. And once they do that, once they start asking Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton and Webster Hubbell and John Podesta and Bill Richardson and Al Gore and the current Secretary of State, the current head of the CIA, the obvious questions, it's over. It's done. The truth embargo will not last 2 weeks.
You have so many of these top people that have such extraordinary evidence, extraordinary testimony of what they witnessed, and yet people don't take it seriously. And the thing is just like Stan Friedman says, it's the noisy negatives. Don't bother me with the facts. My mind is already made up. All it takes is a little research into the facts to realize not only is there something to this, there is really something to this.
Well, of course, and that's been known for a long time. Look, let me tell you, the media know this is true. I mean, there's a huge number of people in the media that know this is true. So, they write thousands of stories about it. I mean, you go to Paradigm Research Group website, check out the media archive. I mean, there's 6,000-7,000 stories there, articles. They just write articles, though. It's like whatever happened, write it up. This statement, that statement, this press conference, write it up. No investigation. In other words, it's like Woodward and Bernstein not investigating Watergate, just writing what the administration was doing on a daily basis, but never actually going and doing any, quote, real investigation. They've stayed out of the investigation mode because they know if they go there, they end the truth embargo, and it's sort of understood you don't do that. But the point is that the number of people taking it seriously grows every year, and so let's don't overstate the situation. The situation right now is the majority of people believe the ET issue is real. The vast majority know the government's lying. More and more media are covering the issue. It just hasn't finally broken yet. The truth embargo is just clinging there, hanging there, and it's all it's going to take is a little more effort, a little more force, and it's going to fall. And the question is when. And the analogy is perfect to the situation in the Soviet Union. It became increasingly clear the Soviet Union was kind of hanging on by a thread, but nevertheless, it was a formidable, totalitarian country. But the question became, when would it fall? Now, no one could say for sure, but did it fall? Of course it did. And when it happened very quickly. And the truth embargo will fall the same way, very quickly, almost catching you by surprise.
You know, last night you were talking about something really interesting that the government is, because of everything going around and going on with all the increase in sightings and the new generation literally believing what's happening around the world, that they starting to get together and actually form maybe a disclosure type event that's going to be 2, 3, 5, 10, 30 years from now. But like you said, they're not on our time.
Oh God, no. We're getting lots of feedback that there's some sort of plan going on, but their time schedule is way off. Whether it's 30 years, whether it's 10 years, whether it's 3 years. If it ain't 3 months, they're in for a shock, because the U.S. government's got a big problem. It can't really control its allies anymore. It can't even take care of its own business. You can't go to the world and say you will do everything without getting any of the benefit of being the nation that ended it. They get all the downside, they don't get the upside, right? And so they're running out of time, and it could be worse than that. The country that ends up ending the truth embargo could be the People's Republic of China. Now, what are they going to do about that? I mean, they're going to thank the People's Republic of China. Oh, thank you for finally bringing the truth to your people. Now we can tell the truth to our people. Wow, that's going to go over great. That's going to go over really big amongst American patriots and American exceptionalists and the entire, everybody right of the center. And they're going to have to deal with that. And that's not good. It could be Russia. So they are really, really playing with their geopolitical legacy here, and I don't think they get it. And no matter how many times we stick it in front of their nose, they just try to pretend it's not there. Well, let me tell you, they had better get on their bicycle and start pedaling. And the problem that they face, the problem that this truth embargo is trying to solve for them by triggering the media to come after them in a big way, not to bring them down, but to finally get them out of the box they're in, is a pretty straightforward thing. What has happened over the 65 years, but particularly the first 44, from 47 to 91, of this truth embargo, is that the growing intelligence complex, the huge covert world that they built, pulled the issue out from under the politicians, out from under the executive branch, the Congress, just pulled it out from under them and said, nothing there, don't worry about it. So the oversight disappeared. The need to brief went away. It's like, hey, you got plenty to worry about. Don't worry about this. Need to know. And so now the Congress is out of the picture. The president's not being briefed. And so they did that, and they felt very cool about it. It's going to be a lot easier to maintain this embargo now that it's pretty much just in the basement of the Pentagon or underground in some facilities in the deep Western countries. Except, guess what the problem is now? As the pressure mounts on the truth embargo, the president hasn't got the information to go before the American people. The president can't go in front of the American people and say there's extraterrestrials here, but I can't tell you anymore because the military won't give me the evidence. I don't think so. And so the president can't act. Meanwhile, the military and the intelligence community have another problem. Though they may think so on occasion, they are not the fourth branch of government. They are the employees of the president. They serve the president. He is the commander-in-chief of all of them. And so no bird colonel in the Air Force or some middle manager in the CIA or even the director of the CIA is going to get up some morning and say, I think it's time for the American people to know they're not alone in the universe, and call a press conference. It's treason just for openers. All right? It will destroy the relationship between the military intelligence community and the executive branch, and cause untold chaos. They can't do it. And so they can't tell us. The president can't tell us. They back themselves out. And so what has to happen? It's not that difficult. The president needs to send a representative of the executive branch. If I had to pick a candidate, John Podesta, number one on my list. They need to send that person to a meeting with a representative of the military intelligence complex management group that runs this organization, whatever the hell it's called. And they meet in private, and they come to an understanding. What does the president need from the military intelligence complex in terms of evidence so that he can go before the American people and be backed up so that the disclosure event is done properly and the American people are comfortable with what they hear? And the military intelligence community has got to get from the president and understand and explain to the president what they expect and need from the executive branch to serve the interests of national security as they view it. And once that understanding has been reached, disclosure can happen the next day, and they're not going to wait around. It's not the kind of thing you sit on. And it's done. They hold it. They get it done. It's done. So this meeting has to take place. It's that simple. And that's the message we're sending over and over and over and over again. Get together with the military intelligence complex, Mr. President, and get a deal done so that you can end this truth embargo first. If you're smart, the rest of the world will follow very quickly, and then we will be in the post-disclosure world, and then we can work with that. If you don't, some other nation is going to do it, and I guarantee you the United States will suffer profoundly for it, and the president who is sitting on his hands the day another nation discloses the extraterrestrial presence will have a catastrophic political legacy.
You know, Mr. Bassett, you mentioned something really amazing, which a true point. What happens if Russia brings it? What happens if China brings this up first before the U.S. does? I was talking to Dr. Lear recently, and we were mentioning Brazil. They're open in South America. Brazil does not need oil because they run on ethanol.
Right.
What if they bring it up first? We're going to look so stupid because we're covering the world in essence. Like we said, you know, if 30 years ago we said jump, the world said how high, but that's not the way it is anymore.
Oh, God, yes. You know, we'd say jump, they'd say how high. Well, first of all, you know, if any some South American country ending the truth embargo, some country we tried to overthrow in some, previous era, that's going to be a little embarrassing for sure. Brazil, though, being the first nation, would not be nearly as consequential to the United States than, say, Russia or the People's Republic of China. I think it was Robert Bigelow not too long ago gave a presentation where he showed great concern that the People's Republic of China might be in a position pretty soon to claim the moon. Right?
Yeah.
He was serious. He was serious.
What about making Mars the red planet of China? They could claim it for themselves and be the first.
Yeah, it's the red planet. I mean, what?
Why wouldn't they want call it the red planet of China? It'd be cool for them. They might beat us at this rate.
What happens is the People's Republic of China or Russia would...
That's right, all you listeners. I'm your host, Dr. J. Andy Elias, and I got some breaking news from Blake. Blake, tell everybody what you got.
Just in the past 45 minutes, I've downloaded 3 different images of incredible things. First of all is the beam that we're talking about in the beginning of the show. And now I obtained some footage right there on location from Area 51. We're going to be going over the footage and editing this incredible encounter with security, the closest footage of what the security guards look like and the vehicles they're driving right now at Area 51, also with images right there at the base. Incredible stuff we're going to be posting right here in Third Phase. And also right out of Myrtle Beach, more breaking news, a video I just downloaded approximately 12 minutes ago from the UFO hunter, Joe Kiernan. He's on the show right now. Thanks for joining us right here at Third Phase of Moon.
It's a pleasure to be here. How are you gentlemen tonight?
We're all doing good, and we also got Stephen Bassett. We're going to be speaking with him just momentarily, and I'm sure Joe's got some questions for him coming up. I just want to get to this incredible video you just sent to me. It looks like it just came right out of Area 51. Obviously, it is some kind of conventional aircraft, but it is very unusual in the way it looks and flies. It has a triangular formation, lights that don't make any sense from the bottom, and then all of a sudden, Joe, this thing cloaks out of existence, just straight out of a Star Trek movie. What did you think when you saw this?
Pretty much the same thing as you. As quick as it disappeared was as quick as it arrived. It was a nice clear night. There was a lot of strange lights, a lot of very different lights that are out of the ordinary. Occasionally, I do see a lot of these very strange lights, but in the last 2 nights, it seems to be a conglomerate of all of these strange lights were all coming together, and they were very exciting nights. The orange orbs that we used to see here regularly, they made a return as well, which was absolutely astonishing. Very nice to see them back. it's very strange with the orange orbs. There is a sense of empathy with them. It's a very, very joyful and happiness feeling when they arrive. They do really incredible things, but unfortunately, when the orange orbs are here, the military jets are not far behind. So,
well, not just military jets, experimental military with possible cloaking technology. I've never seen anything quite like it. A whole aircraft just basically cloak out like a Klingon vessel, and it was spectacular. Did this thing make any noise at all, Joe?
No, this thing didn't make any noise at all. And we had my wife and I, we were sitting out enjoying the night, and we had our eyes on the sky pretty good. And this thing just had all of its lights on. It just all of a sudden just had it looked like a dozen lights were all over this thing, and it really just was right there in front of us. And we were discussing it. Did you see it coming? I never saw it coming. I don't know where it came from. It was just there. And it cruised right past the constellation of Orion and continued on a due north path, went straight over my house and didn't get too far past my house, and then it wasn't there. I don't know if all the lights went off or it was completely cloaked out at that point. Regardless, it just appeared and then it wasn't there. And it lasted about a minute and a half. It was rather incredible. It was truly astonishing.
Mr. Bassett, let's continue going into this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, again, it's not a conference. It is a hearing, citizen hearing. It's designed to look and feel like a congressional hearing. It's the hearing that Congress has not held. And it's been, I guess since 1968 was the last time that the Congress held a hearing on this, which is amazing when you consider how much evidence has amassed since then. And it's going to cost $600,000. That's how much we're spending on it. To give you, it's the most expensive event in this field ever. It is the largest event, I think, of its kind ever. It's unprecedented in the nature of the way it's constructed. And more importantly, we're making it accessible to the media around the world. In other words, any reporter, editor, publisher in any country in the world can watch this live for 30 hours for $3.80 by going to citizenhearing.org and clicking on the webcast, the CHD webcast. Now, obviously the public as well. We'd love to have people all over the world watching this. This could be an historical event. This could be the event that triggers disclosure finally. Not directly, but by triggering the media to actually start asking, who have access in every country to their leadership and to their legislatures and so forth, and if they're so disposed, could ask questions about this. And if that starts, it's over. The truth embargo cannot sustain even a moderately vigorous media engagement of investigative engagement. So that's what's going down. And it's not the only thing happening. There are other documentaries coming out. There's more documents being released. Australia just joined the group of nations, the last major Commonwealth nation, about a number of months ago, and Australia proactively released a lot of their files on this phenomena. Not smoking gun, not gun camera footage. None of them have done that, but they've released more files to be downloaded millions more times. People all over the world spreading this information everywhere, while the U.S., of course, has not released anything. Again, the U.S. is boxed in. It can't take any action because as the leader of the truth embargo, any such action would be magnified, and suddenly they'd have 1,000 reporters on top of them, so they have to do nothing, right? So our goal is nothing less than creating a situation where the truth embargo will end this summer, and to help ensure that they don't think this is just going to go away. Not only are we holding the event from April 29 to May the 3rd, but we are broadcasting it worldwide live. And then we're putting an archive up of the English, Spanish, and 4 other languages, hopefully Hindi, Mandarin, Japanese, and Arabic, representing a total of 3.5 billion people, and that'll be up to 30 days. And then we're making a documentary about it that'll come out later in the year. We're not going away. If they think they can just sit there and we'll all go away and try to forget this, it's not going to happen. They're going to have to do something.
Stephen, that's the bulldog of getting the questions out, sick the pit bull. You go get them. We like that attitude. We need more people with that kind of fire to get, the answers to our questions, because, there are out there in the government, high power, trying to suppress technology that could benefit mankind as a whole. You know, this video that we just got in from Area 51, we asked him why is he doing this? What is his agenda and the whole thing? And he just wants to know the answers, where our taxpayer money is going, and trying to find out. Do you know anybody in Area 51 base that has come forward through your research that has spoken to you about Area 51 on what is really going on there?
A number of people have come forward about Area 51. There's probably a good dozen. It's a tough one because they protect Area 51 pretty intensely, as you know, and so they've gone to greater lengths, I think, to undermine potential witness testimony there. I think probably the leading expert on Area 51 and the witnesses is George Knapp. At this point, Area 51 is not. I mean, Area 51 is going to come up in the hearing. I really would love to do a strong panel about it, but I could not assemble the people I needed. It's tough, but we don't need Area 51. Everybody knows about it. Perhaps in another hearing we'll do that. But I'm glad you mentioned this business about being a bulldog and all that. Let me tell you a little anecdote here. We have 6 former members of Congress. 20-year Congressman Roscoe Bartlett, who's a scientist, served on many committees relevant to this issue, and just left the House, right, after 20 years. We've got Congresswoman Lynn Woolsey, who just left the House after serving 20 years. We have Congresswoman Carolyn Kilpatrick, that left not too long ago after 14 years, Darlene Hooley after 12 years. Then we have another gentleman who is a scientific background, Merle Cook. And then we have Senator Mike Gravel. Now, you fellows may not be of our generation, my generation, or certainly Mike's generation, but you talk about a bulldog. Mike Gravel is still going strong in 82, still pretty sharp. And a lot of people have forgotten that it was Mike Gravel, in order to help short-circuit the Nixon administration's effort to indict and convict Daniel Ellsberg over the release of the Pentagon files, as well as their lawsuits against the Washington Post, essentially irrevocably put the issue out there by getting up and filibustering and reading the Pentagon Papers into the record of his Senate committee on Public Works, I believe it was. It didn't matter. And by doing that, he basically made the whole issue moot and helped to result in the collapse of the case against Daniel Ellsberg. Now, that's a bulldog. And Mike Gravel is on the committee, this committee. And I'll give you another little anecdote. You want to know about a bulldog? 45 years ago, the last congressional hearing, which had 5 witnesses, it was basically kind of just get the hearing done, here's some stuff, and then let's just forget about it. Right, 1968, and then the next year they closed down Project Blue Book and then tried to just pretend nothing, it was all going to go away. One of the 5 and only living witness from that hearing was Stanton Friedman. And 45 years later, Stanton Friedman is going to be testifying in front of the Citizen Hearing Committee. That's a bulldog. That's the kind of people that they think are just going to go away and leave them alone. And it isn't going to happen. The American people are so disgusted with American politics because of its degree of institutional lying and propaganda and ineffectiveness that the approval rating of the Congress is at 10%. 10%. The Politburo in the Soviet Union had better approval ratings than that. They should be grotesquely embarrassed that in a country like ours, where you have a great deal of latitude to take action, and you're not going to be thrown in a gulag or put into prison because you challenge, say, one of the branches of government, that they are so ineffective that their approval rating is 10%. That's how bad it is. And so this idea that somehow, if they just learn how to lie better or do even less and less and less, that somehow their approval rating will go up is madness. They had better start doing their job and telling the truth. Or, they become irrelevant. I don't know. Maybe we'll just shut the whole thing down and we'll just have 2 branches of government. That's the reason why the Citizen Hearing on Disclosure has a motto. And I assure you, this motto is not referring to any of the Citizen Committee members. But the motto is, if Congress will not do its job, the people will. We're going to do their job for them, and we're going to do it at the National Press Club, 14 blocks from where they don't do their job. And we're sending a simple message. My God, folks, we're paying $180,000 a year, and we have to do your job for you too. And then we're sending the press a message which isn't doing their job. We're investigating this issue, and we're holding the investigation in the National Press Club, where the 13 floors underneath us are filled with media who are not doing the job that we're going to do for them. I don't know how clear this message could be.
The people will do the job. People are submitting their footage on a daily basis, and there is one guy in particular, Joe Kiernan, right here on the show, has managed to capture multiple sightings over South Carolina. Do you have any questions for Stephen Bassett in regards to what you've dealt with or what you hope for the future of this major event?
Yes. There's quite a bit I'd like to add in and look for answers there. Mr. Bassett, how are you? Thank you for taking the time. Mm-hmm. I'm very interested in the citizens' disclosure in D.C. It was brought to my attention a few weeks ago. I had the pleasure of spending the day with Stanton Friedman, and he was the one who first brought it to my attention. And you can't be more right than what you were just saying a moment ago. We're really not getting much help from where we would like the help to come from, and unfortunately, it has a lot of this info and the legwork is done by a lot of the citizens who may or may not be having a difficult time dealing with it. I have been seeing a few strange things, and many people have, a lot of very credible people. And one way or another, as Blake knows, I somehow became the voice for many people that are scared to speak up, whether they're scared of the lights they're seeing or they're scared of the people who follow up on these lights. I do understand the fear that's involved. I don't want to draw any more attention to myself or family. That's not necessary, and nor does the next person. But there's a point where enough's enough, and the lights, if they, in my case, had been coming immediately close in proximity to my family and home, and I got the runaround that nothing was there, and then something was there, but it wasn't what you think it is. And now officially, from my Air Force base here and the officer I've been dealing with, I have now received 4 separate statements regarding the same incident. One of these incidents, we have 9 separate camera angles at the same time on the same evening. Rather incredible stuff, but it's all amazing, but it's only as good as the story I tell it. It doesn't do any good. It's not helping anyone else. It's not bringing justification or disclosure or answers or helping anyone sleep better at night around here, for that matter.
Well, you've raised some important points. Look, one of the things you hear from, I don't know, I'm not sure, they're not really debunkers. They're sort of, defenders of the status quo, reactionaries perhaps, but they take, the reason that they don't tell us, or they really shouldn't tell us about the truth about this, is it will scare us. We'll become frightened. And I'm going, you know what scares people? What scares people is when you tell them there's nothing going on at all, and then they see the stuff happening. Now the unknown, right? What is it? Well, the government doesn't know, won't even tell us. God knows what it is. So the truth embargo has actually had exactly the opposite effect. And I don't believe for a second that scaring us is in any way the reason why they haven't told us the truth. It is primarily a national security matter. It's also an economic matter with certain segments of the industries, but most of this is just propaganda. Economy will collapse, not true. Religion will collapse, not true. We'll be scared and frightened, not true. What is causing the economy to collapse is lies about the banking industry, lies about the economic systems, lies about the actions of criminals within these systems. What's causing the infrastructure to collapse is lies about the condition of our own bridges. Our esteem in the world is being caused to collapse by lies about our policies with respect to other nations, about the reasons we go to war. Lies upon lies upon lies is destroying the United States' position in the world. We're hell-bent to become the British Empire of the 21st century, where we're reduced to like one just sort of limited country, surrounded by nuclear weapons and some big ships, unable to pay our bills and increasingly irrelevant unless we want to launch a nuclear war or something. I mean, this is where we're headed. This is what they want. And so the truth embargo, which at one time was a policy that perhaps was needed because of the fact that we were hell-bent on building tens of thousands of nuclear weapons and threatening to launch them at any moment, and they were deeply concerned that the extraterrestrial issue would just be more than society could handle, that day has passed. And so the justification is no longer there. And so the truth embargo simply becomes another instance of massive lying, institutional lying, which is helping to undermine the virtual fundamental credibility of the United States, not only overseas but in the country. We now live at a time when, on any given day, something's going to blow up. And one of the first questions that's going to be asked by people and by the media is, was it domestic or foreign?
Yeah.
Well, that's a great place to be. America, the exceptional nation, the great nation, the world superpower. Basically, one of the decisions it has to decide every few days is, was the last explosion domestic or foreign? That's what it's come to. Now, anybody that doesn't see how bad that is and doesn't understand where we're ultimately going and doesn't realize we have to have major institutional reform is living an utter delusion and will be standing on the corpse of this nation in due course.
Mr. Bassett, we have Preston Dennett. He's a MUFON researcher of 23 years. He's also been an author of 15 books, 2 more coming out, and he's just joined us on the show. Preston, do you have a question for Mr. Bassett?
I sure do. Hi, Stephen. We met, I don't know if you remember, at David Sarita's house.
Yes, I do remember.
Yeah, so this is a great subject. I think this is the most important area, honestly, of UFO research. And I'm wondering, what do you think is the best case scenario of this citizens disclosure meeting that we're...
Best case scenario?
Yeah.
The hearing goes extremely well. We're hoping we're going to get... we'd love to get a few 100,000 people on the webcast, which you can get by going to citizenhearing.org. And we're charging, I think, $3.80 for 30 hours of the hearing. And if we can do that, then we'll have adequate funding to ensure the documentary about all this gets done this year. So that would be one part of the best case scenario. And then the second best, of course, would be a great deal of press coverage going in and during and after. And we're well on the way to that. It's looking pretty good, though recently some things blew up, as we all know, and that's attracted enormous press. And so we're having to compete with the latest explosions, which we're not sure yet whether they're domestic or foreign. And then what happens then is that some of the editors and publishers and some of the network owners finally realize that the biggest story of all time is right underneath their nose, and they start asking some questions. In the White House briefing room, at the State Department briefing room, the Department of Defense press conferences, and also of various public figures that are attached to this issue, such as John Podesta and Bill Richardson and Webster Hubbell, and of course Bill and Hillary Clinton. If they do that, then we've done our job, and I think the truth embargo will end this summer. That's the best case scenario, and it's not out of the question. I mean, it's definitely possible. Obviously, the more people that watch and listen and pay attention, the better. But ultimately, the press is going to have to pull the trigger on this, because this is not the kind of issue you can put 1 million people in Washington marching up and down the street on. It's just not that kind of issue. That's not going to happen, and it costs a fortune to do that. This is the kind of issue that needs the media. Same thing with the Iraq War. The situation developing on the Iraq War, which happened very quickly, was not the kind of issue that a bunch of people going into the street could have resolved. What was needed was the media. The media needed to get in there, dig, get in investigative mode, and sort out what was being said to us. And we might have gotten to the truth, and that war might have been avoided. But the media failed us. In fact, I'll drive this point home by saying this. In the National Press Club, not in the hallway where the main ballroom is, where we're going to hold a citizen hearing, but in the other hallway, which leads to the restaurant, very nice restaurant, by the way, is a plaque that was donated to the Press Club in 1962 in honor of the founding of the Columbia School of Journalism by Joseph Pulitzer. And this plaque has a quote on it from Joseph Pulitzer, of which the first sentence is rather profound. And that sentence reads simply this: "Our republic and its press will rise or fall together." And there's nothing truer out there than that. And the press needs to understand that. If the public goes down, the press goes down. And if the press goes down, the public goes down. They are wedded together. Their fate is wedded together. That is the nature of relatively democratic states, Republican states, representative government. If the press just thinks they're here to make a buck and toss some tabloid stories around, then they're in the wrong profession. And they ought to do, I don't know, whatever they want to do. I don't know, start a reality show, open up a hamburger franchise, whatever, but for God's sakes, get out of journalism. The press in this country is essential to to sustaining this country, and they have lost that. They don't get that anymore. They think that uncovering an affair between a movie star and a general or something in the army is massive investigative success. It's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. When the real stuff comes down, they are failing us over and over again. And so I'm going to call attention to that quote frequently during the citizen hearing. I'm going to put a picture of it up on the citizen hearing website tonight, citizenhearing.org, by the way. So you see what I'm saying? You see how this all ties together? This is sort of locked in together. There is a Gordian knot that needs to be cut. And the citizen hearing is a $600,000 knife that we've sharpened as best we can to see if we can cut right through that knot. And now we're freeing everybody up to then do the job that they, were meant to do, paid to do, perhaps called to do.
Yeah, I think people are very interested in UFOs, and I think overwhelmingly people, believe in them, the majority certainly, but on the same hand, people aren't taking action, and they're not thinking that this is an important issue, and I'm wondering what we can do to make people take this subject more seriously. I mean, why aren't people more into UFOs? This is a huge story.
Well, again, that's actually not the way it is. The polls quite show that they're quite aware that this issue is real. And first of all, we don't want them to get into UFOs. We want to put the acronym UFO completely in the past.
Right.
It no longer works. It no longer applies. It's inappropriate. It's anachronistic. Let's just forget about it. It's extraterrestrial phenomena. That's what it is. It's not UFOs. UFOs is a propaganda term created by the government specifically to help maintain the truth embargo. It's no longer applies. We're talking about extraterrestrial phenomena. We're talking about extraterrestrials. We're talking about silver discs with humanoid non-humans in them. That's what we're talking about. If there's a flock of geese up there, fine. We're not talking about that.
I just wanted to say this subject matter and getting the truth out. Researchers on a mission, Stephen Bassett going at them, asking the heavy questions, bringing everybody to get together, talk about the truth. I want you, Stephen Bassett, to look everybody in the eye when you're down there and you don't back or take a blink. We love what you're doing. You keep up the hard work. Your statements here are very strong, but, this is what people need to hear. They need to wake up. And, if anybody out there has captured anything amazing out there, you could send it to us at Third Phase of Moon via Skype. I'm going to have to sign off, guys. Everybody keep your eyes on the ball. We got to get answers to what's going on in our universe and right here on planet Earth. My name's Blake Cousins, and we'll see everybody again next time.
Thank you, Blake. The citizens hearing is the most important event that's taking place in decades, if not in all of ufology's history. The top members of the witnesses, military brass, intelligence agents, the astronaut, everybody's going to be testifying in front of former members of Congress. How much better can it get to push disclosure? Mr. Bassett, let's pick up where we left off. We're going to be covering this. We're going to be watching the whole thing over those 5 days, and we're going to be releasing updates and hoping that the people are going to be watching it. We're going to be pushing it. All you listeners out there, make sure you stream in and watch it live on citizenshearing.org.
Yeah, I hope that they will participate, right? And spread it. We really hope people will spread the link, citizenhearing.org, and the webcast. or the direct link to the webcast through their social media, Twitter and all that stuff. Let's get it out there and see if we can get broad participation. Everybody wins if we do that. This event's importance, of course, remains to be seen. It is the potential to be historical. There's no question about it. It will not be perfect. I'm sure this is a very complex technical setup that we're having to do. It was even more complex that we cut back because we were just overreaching. So we'll probably have some technical glitches and what have you. But in general, we expect it to go fairly smoothly.
I think it will go very smooth because, you have amassed such enormous witnesses. The South American panel is going to be talking about, there was the crash in Brazil as recently as 1996, and the government was very open about it. I think with all these different witnesses, I don't know how much better it can get. What more do the people want? The evidence is right there.
Again, the people, I think, the people by and large get it, and we don't really need to. It won't make much difference if we persuade another 5, 10, 15%. It's the media that has got to get turned on here.